All right, how's everybody doing? Good. It's good to see all of you, and welcome to those of you joining us from our campuses as well as Ada Bible Church online. Just thanks for tuning in. And my name's Aaron. If we haven't met, I'm the Director of Student Ministries here and one of the teaching pastors. I'm just excited for the opportunity to hang out with all of you. And I want to congratulate you on something, on surviving the last 2 weeks of just crazy weather around here, the snowpocalypse. And mothers, parents out there, I see you, okay? 9 snow days in 2 weeks. Solidarity, hang in there, you can do this, okay? Another group of people I think we should recognize and thank. There are people who attend Ada who have been plowing like nonstop, and people that work for the power companies, and so we just want to thank you, appreciate you. Keeping us safe, keeping us warm, getting our electricity back, just very grateful. But this time together today, I'm just excited for the opportunity to open the scriptures with all of you. Part 5 of this series on Ecclesiastes called Making Sense Out of Life. And I want to start with a game, actually, called Would You Rather? Anybody familiar with this? Yeah, okay, so let's do this. Got some questions for you. Here we go. Would you rather read the book or watch the movie? Who's reading the book? Okay, and watch the movie? All right, pretty even, okay. Would you rather vacation in the mountains or at the beach? Who's at the beach? All right, and in the mountains? Okay, now this is a tougher one, all right. Would you rather only be able to whisper for the rest of your life or only be able to shout? Whisperers and loud talkers. All right, good. One more. Would you rather always smell amazingly good or have a good reputation? And right about now, you're probably thinking, what are we doing? Okay, what is this? This, my friends, is what happens when the youth pastor gets to preach. Yes. No. There is a connection to the book of Ecclesiastes. Check this out. A good name is better than fine perfume. Would you rather smell amazingly good or would you rather have a good name? You see, the writer of Ecclesiastes, many people think it's King Solomon. We're not exactly sure, but in chapter 7, he gives us this great line in this conversation he wants to have on living wisely. He says, a good name is better than fine perfume, or maybe another comparison would be a good name is better than being wealthy. Because the original audience for Ecclesiastes, you would only be able to afford fine perfume if you were really, really wealthy. And so another question, would you rather have a good reputation or be wealthy? Now these are tough questions, but I want to have a conversation today about what it means to have a good name. And what it means to have exceptional character, a good reputation. And you know what I mean by this, right? A good name. You know if somebody has a good name or not based on what people say about them when they're not there. When they're not in the room, but their name comes up and how people describe them, the things that they say about their character, their interactions with them. It's like, oh yeah, I've done business with them. Okay, you don't want to. Bad name. Oh, I know her. Oh, what an amazing woman. Yeah, she's fantastic. Good name. You see what I mean? And so I want to have a conversation about what it looks like for you and I to have a good name. And I think there's common ground here. You know, whether you grew up in the church and you've been a Christian, a follower of Jesus since before you can even remember, or whether this is your first time walking into a church or watching online in like centuries, you know, there's common ground here in that we all want to have a good reputation. And we all want people to think highly of us, and we all want to have exceptional character. And so here's a question to ponder. What kind of name do you have? When your name is brought up, when you're not there, what kind of things do people say? How do they describe your character? What stories might they tell about interactions with you? What do you wish they would say? What kind of name do you have? Now, maybe you're young, early 20s, teenager, and your question is, okay, how do I earn that kind of name? How do you build that kind of character? Or maybe you're a little older and you're thinking, okay, how do I get back to that kind of good name? because the last couple years have been a journey. You've made some decisions and some things have happened, and you're just not so sure that if your name was brought up, that people are gonna say great things about you. Or maybe you're single, you're dating, and it's like, I would really like to know how to identify this kind of character and whether or not somebody has a good name before I invest a year of my life into a relationship, only to discover, I don't think this person really has the character that I'm looking for. And so I'm not sure exactly where you fall on this spectrum, but one thing I know for sure is you and I, we all want to have a good name. And what's great is that in Ecclesiastes 7, the writer, he gives us some clues on how to build that kind of reputation. And so as we explore this chapter, we're gonna uncover what I'm calling 3 pursuits. 3 pursuits. If you should pursue these, I believe they will lead you to the kind of reputation and character and good name that you're looking for. And what's fun is that along the way, the writer, he keeps bringing in or sprinkling in these, it's better to this than to that kind of statements. A good name is better than fine perfume. We're gonna see these sprinkled throughout. And they just kind of remind me of would you rather questions. And so I'm gonna keep issuing you some would you rather questions throughout this conversation. So once again, get ready, here we go. Would you rather never lose your keys or never lose your phone? Whose keys? Okay, phone. I'm that guy that's like, I gotta grab, where's my phone? Before I leave the house, where is it? Would you rather scuba dive or skydive? How about neither, okay? They both are very dangerous. Would you rather go to a party or a funeral? This one's kind of like, duh, right? Well, check it out. Ecclesiastes. It's better to go to a house of mourning than to go to a house of feasting. House of feasting, party, dinner party, friends, good food, laughter. It's better to go to a house of mourning. Really? That doesn't make sense. And what does he mean by a house of mourning here? You see, the Jewish people, historically, and I think modern Jews as well, often practice a longer time of mourning than many of us in our culture. In fact, modern Jews have something called sitting Shiva. Have you ever heard of this? It's like after the funeral and the burial of a loved one, the family and people that are close to the family gather together in the home of the family for up to like 7 days. And here's an image of what this might look like. And so some aspects of sitting Shiva, you sit low, like there's low benches. There's certain foods that you can and can't eat. Obviously the dress is the dress of mourners. And so this is like a special extended time. It's not like stopping into the visitation for an hour or attending a funeral and a luncheon afterward and then leaving. We're like up to 7 days. And so in thinking about a parallel of what this might be like in for many of us, non-Jews, it kind of makes me think of if somebody in your family passes away, there's like the news that you get of that passing, and then you gather with the family and there's the planning for the funeral, so there's some meetings there, and then you have a visitation, maybe multiple visitations, and then you have the funeral and the lunch afterward. But then through this time period and after, there are all these times when you go back to the home of the family and you just spend time together. And in my mind, that being together in a living room or around a kitchen table, that's more of, for us, what the house of mourning might be like. It's extended in an extended time. And what do you do in that space? You comfort those who have lost, and you just give your presence. You just be together, and you remember. You tell stories about the person. Sometimes there's stories that make you cry. Sometimes there's stories that make you laugh. And then in the quieter moments, when there's no talking, you reflect. Your thoughts turn inward and you think about your own life. It's the house of mourning. And the writer of Ecclesiastes, he says, look, this experience is so much better. It's so much more valuable than going to a party with friends and having a good time. And the question is, okay, why? Why is that more valuable? Well, he continues here. It's better to go to a house of mourning than to go to a house of feasting, for death is the destiny of everyone. He says, understand something, every funeral is foreshadowing. At some point you realize, okay, all these people who are dressed in black, these mourners, someday they're gonna be gathered for me. And someday it's gonna be me in that box. Every funeral is foreshadowing, and he says, the living should take this to heart. You should do something with this. What? What exactly? Well, he continues. Frustration is better than laughter, because a sad face is good for the heart. And this is one of those verses that first reading, you just go, what? Huh? Right? It's kind of confusing. And so sometimes as I'm reading the scriptures and when it's confusing, I might read a different translation. You know, this is the NIV. I might try the ESV or something like that. And sometimes I even use the Message. Anybody ever read the Message? Yeah, so this pastor, his name is Eugene Peterson, he paraphrased the Bible. So it's not a literal translation, but he paraphrased the Bible into a more modern version of English with very vivid language. And sometimes I'll use the Message. So I wanted to show you what the Message says here. It says, crying is better than laughing, it's more valuable. It blotches the face. When you're mourning, when you're reflecting on death, it's not fun, it's not pretty, it blotches the face, but it scours the heart. And I love this image, it scours the heart. The writer of Ecclesiastes says, look, the house of mourning, it's so much more valuable than the house of feasting. It's better to go to a funeral than to a party. Why? Because the experience scours the heart. And when I think about scouring, it reminds me of being a little kid. I'm talking like 6, 7, 8 years old, back in the 80s. And back in the day, we used to do this crazy thing that you may have heard of it. It's called playing outside. Have you heard of this? Yeah, it's like, I don't think we do that anymore. I think it's dangerous. I don't exactly know. But when I was a kid, all day long in the summer, we'd play outside. I mean, we would play Army guys. We would, play baseball and football. We would, ride our bikes, and we would get filthy. I mean, so dirty. Like, I would come home at night, and it was like, burn the clothes and put them right in the bath, And so I'm in the bath as a little kid, and my mom then would grab this washcloth and a bar of soap, and she would begin to scour me. Does anybody remember this kind of experience, right? Because my knees at this point, they're just black. They're so dirty. And so she's just scrubbing and scouring, and it hurt. Who remembers that? It was painful. But the scouring cut through that dirt and that grime and then got down to the actual me. It's like, oh, there he is. There's that pink skin. At this point, it's very red because of the scouring, but it's clean. So this idea is mourning and reflecting on the reality of death. It scours the heart. And so what it does is it cuts through all the stuff in our lives that really doesn't matter that much. And it reveals what truly does matter. When you allow yourself to reflect and spend time with the reality of death, our own death, it just cuts through all the stuff. It doesn't matter that much. And it painfully cleans down to the core of, that is what truly matters in my life. And it forces us to ask hard questions, because every funeral is foreshadowing. And we have moments where we think, okay, when it's my turn, someday, hopefully many days from now, who's gonna gather at my funeral? Who's gonna be there to celebrate my life, to remember me? And what kind of things are they gonna say? What are the stories that they're gonna tell about me? And when it comes to that time where they begin to share what I loved, what you loved, What are they going to say? Oh, she loved shopping. He loved video games. Man, did he love video games. She loved money. I mean, that was it for her. Man, he loved his family. He loved his kids, and they knew it. She loved to serve. And she was so faithful in her role at the church, serving with the kids. Man, he was generous. He loved to give money away. I don't know who's paying for this funeral, because it's probably not him, because he gave it all away. She loved Jesus. I mean, you just knew it. The way that she talked, the way that she spent her time, she loved her Savior. When it comes to that point where they begin to share what you loved, what are they going to talk about? What are they going to share? You see, if you want to live a life of strong character, if you want a good reputation, if you want a good name, I have a suggestion for you based on what we're reading here in Ecclesiastes. And the suggestion is this: live backward. Live backward. Decide that what's gonna matter then, make it matter now in the way that you live your life. Live backward. And if you're thinking, wow, what an amazing line. Where did he come up with this? I stole it. I stole it from this book. It's called Living Life Backward. You see what I did there? How Ecclesiastes teaches us to live in light of the end. This is a good book, and somebody from our church gave a copy to Jeff. He passed along to me. We both read it in preparation for this series, and I want to read you a section of this book. Before I do, if this series has resonated with you, if you found it encouraging and challenging, pick up this book. They sell it on Amazon and other places where they sell books these days. But here's a quote from the book. Ecclesiastes teaches us to live life backward. It encourages us to take the one thing in the future that is certain, our death, and work backward from that point into all the details and decisions and heartaches of our lives, and to think about them from the perspective of the end. It is the destination that makes sense of the journey. If we know for sure where we are heading, then we can know for sure what we need to do before we get there. Ecclesiastes invites us to let the end sculpt our priorities and goals, our greatest ambitions, and our strongest desires. He basically says, I want to persuade you that the only way that you can truly live is to learn how to die. Live life backward. Choose to make what's going to matter ahead then, make it matter now. And so the question is, will it matter then? That's the question to ask. And so this is why the writer of Ecclesiastes says this next. He says, the heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of pleasure. And when he says the heart, I think what he's saying here is the thoughts, the reflections, the focus of a wise person. They allow themselves to spend time with this idea, I will someday die. And I should make what's going to matter then matter now. And the contrast is with a fool, their reflections, their thoughts, their focus is on the house of pleasure. It's on the next adventure, the next experience, the next party. It's all about the now. And so if you want to live the kind of life that matters, that has substance, that you would have a good name, live life backward. That's the idea. And so this conversation about having a good name, the pursuit is to live life backward. And the writer keeps sprinkling in these phrases. A good name is better than fine perfume, and it's better to spend time in the house of mourning than in the house of feasting. And so these better than statements, they just remind me of Would You Rather. And so if you were thinking I was done with this, I'm not. So here we go. Would you rather be an amazing singer or an amazing dancer? Now, careful, this is church, so I would go with the singing. Just kidding. Would you rather be able to run incredibly fast or jump incredibly high? See, I'm a volleyball player, and I would much prefer to jump really high. Would you rather be criticized or praised? Again, duh, right? Well, maybe not. It is better to heed the rebuke of a wise person than to listen to the song of fools. It's better to be criticized, corrected, rebuked by a wise person than to listen to the song of fools. Now, what is the song of fools? What is this about? Well, let me ask you a question. What do you do when you get negative feedback, when you get corrected and criticized? What do you do with that? Imagine you're over here and somebody says to you, I think you should change this, or let's talk about your job performance, or I see this in they give you some kind of correction or criticism. Often what we do is we take those words and we go over here to our friends, to our people, to our corner, and we say, this is what that person said. And our friends will say, listen, you're so amazing. You're a wonderful person. Don't listen. They don't know you. Listen, you're beautiful just the way you are. You're amazing. Baby, you're a firework. Haters gonna hate. This is the song of fools. Now, sometimes this happens in real life. It never happens on social media. I just want to be clear about that, okay? The song of fools. It's empty praise. That's what it is. It's empty praise. And I'm telling you, it's dangerous. It is dangerous. Why is it dangerous? Well, look at this. Like the crackling of thorns under the pots, so is the laughter of fools, the singing of fools. This too is meaningless. And this meaningless word, it's like the key word of Ecclesiastes. And if you've been part of the series, you know that it means a vapor, a mist. It's fleeting. In other words, this whole thing, it does not matter very much. So the crackling of thorns under the pot, what is he talking about here? Well, back in the day, the original audience of this book, they would have cooked over a fire, most likely. And so whether it's in your house or out in your courtyard, you're cooking your food in a pot over the fire. And thorns or twigs, they light quickly. They make some pretty cool noise as they burn. They might, give off a little smoke, but then it's over. The idea is you can't actually cook your food with this. It's pretty useless. What you need is actual substantial wood, firewood that has some substance. This will actually cook your food. So the crackling of thorns, the idea is it's useless. It will not actually help you cook the food. And so for us, in our quest, in our desire to become people of character, who have a good reputation and a good name, understand that the song of fools is useless to you. It will not help you. It will not get you there. You need correction. Because here's the thing, you and I, we all have this problem. It's called being a human. We're flawed. We have weaknesses. We have blind spots, and we need wise people to correct us in order to become people of character. So the pursuit here is to listen wisely. It's to become people who are listening wisely to correction and criticism and rebuke. Now, you may be wondering, how do I know if I'm somebody that listens wisely? How do I know if I really do this? And so let me ask you a series of 3 questions to bring some clarity around this pursuit of listening wisely. Question number 1, are you humble? Are you humble? What do you do when you get criticized, when you get corrected, when you get rebuked? Do you listen to that and do you just run for validation? Tell me, tell me that I'm great. Tell me that I'm okay. Or are you willing to sit in this space and say, thank you for sharing that with me. Can you help me understand what you mean? Or thank you for sharing this with me. Can you give me an example of how I do that? Or thank you for sharing that with me. Would you be willing to help me grow in this area? It's humble. It's a willingness to put yourself under the authority of a wise person. And just let me be clear about something. What I'm not talking about here is when somebody here says something nasty and hurtful and something that's not meant for your good, and you go over to your friends for encouragement and support. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the rebuke of a wise person, a parent, a coach, a foreman, somebody in your small group, an accountability partner, your lifeline leader. Being humble is just being willing to say, thank you for telling me that. I did not want to hear it, but thank you for telling me that. Now, would you help me here? So, am I somebody that listens wisely? Well, are you humble? That's the question. Second question, who are you surrounding yourself with? Who are you journeying through life with? Are they wise people or are they fools? Are they singers? You see, there's a verse in the book of Proverbs, which was written by King Solomon, who, as we have mentioned, may have written Ecclesiastes, where he says, walk with the wise and you will become wise. But a companion of fools suffers harm. Who you journey with, who you surround yourself with matters. My friend John puts it this way: show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Because we become like the people we journey with and we listen to them and their words have influence over us. So am I somebody who listens wisely? Well, who are you surrounding yourself with? It's a good question to wrestle with. Third question. You're not a singer, are you? You're not just a singer, right? I mean, if it's me and I get corrected, somebody points out something in my character and I come over here and you're one of my friends, you're not just gonna sing to me, are you? Oh, no, don't worry, you're great, don't worry about that. They don't know what they're talking about. That doesn't help me. And what happens is we think in that moment that we're doing the kind thing, that we're doing the loving thing, but we're not. It's actually selfish, this unwillingness to speak the truth in love because I need to hear it. I am flawed. I am broken. I have weaknesses. I need you to, in all kindness and love, because it's gonna hurt, tell me the truth. You know what? There might be something to that. So let's talk about that. You're not just a singer, are you? And so a couple pursuits that are gonna help us become the kind of people that we wanna be, people with a good reputation and a good name. Live life backward, listen wisely. And he keeps sprinkling in these, it's better to this, and so you know where I'm going. Yeah, you know what I wanna do here. Yeah, there's more would you rather questions, so buckle up. Would you rather be brilliant or beautiful? Some of you are like, well, I'm both, so that's not humble, okay? Go back to point 2, listen wisely, and re-watch that later this week. Would you rather live without the internet or air conditioning and heat? We did that last week. We're good. All right. Would you rather start something or finish it? How many starters do we have? And finishers? Okay, I got bad news. I'm a starter, by the way. The end of a matter is better than its beginning. Finishing is better than starting. And patience is better than pride. When it comes to finishing, patience is really gonna help you out. Pride, not so much. He says finishing is better than starting. We know this, right? When we think about people of character, the people that we respect, they're faithful people. They endure, they keep their promises, they persevere, they finish what they start. And so the pursuit here is to finish faithfully. And we know this. People of character do this. But there's a bit of a problem. Finishing is hard. Who's with me, right? It is hard. Starting's easy, starting's exciting even, but finishing is difficult. And you and I, we struggle with finishing. And I don't just mean us, I mean people, humans. We struggle with finishing. Let's talk about this. Books. How many of you finish the books that you start? right? So here, there was a study done on a book. It's called The Goldfinch, 2014 Pulitzer Prize winning book. So it's a good book. And the study was, what percentage of people who start the book actually finish it? What's your guess? Here it is. 44%. It's not many, not even half. A Pulitzer Prize winning book. Let's talk about college. What's your guess? What percentage of Americans who start college finish college within 6 years? 55%. And if you're wondering where I got this data, interview with Bill Gates, he knows everything, so it's true. Okay, we got a lot of runners that attend Ada Bible Church, and so marathons. What percentage of people would you guess who start a marathon actually finish it? So Chicago Marathon, 2015, I think, they did a study, 81%. To me, that's impressive. That is very impressive. Maybe you're not a runner, maybe you're a walker. Let's talk hiking. This is the Appalachian Trail. It runs from like Georgia all the way up to Maine. And there's a certain number of people every year that set out to hike the whole thing. I mean, they make the preparations, they do all the stuff. And now what's your guess of people who start this who actually finish it? What do you think? 20%. Finishing is hard. Starting is exciting. You buy the gear, you get the boots, you mark the maps. 20%. Now here's one we can all relate to. New Year's resolutions. What's your guess? Some of you are like, I don't even want to say, because 8%. To those of you in the 92, we still love you. It's all right. Finishing is hard. It's really hard. Starting is exciting. Finishing is difficult. But we know that people of character are faithful, they endure, they persevere, they keep their promises, they finish. Now, let me be clear about something. What I'm not saying is that people of character never quit. I don't want you to hear that. Because there are times when quitting really is the wise thing to do. When you're overextended, when you need to focus on what really matters. I mean, sometimes God even calls us away from tasks or responsibilities. And so I'm not saying never quit. But here's a question I want you to wrestle with. Is there something in your life, a responsibility, a task, a relationship, that you know God is asking you to finish faithfully, that you're just thinking about walking away from? A relationship, a task, a responsibility that you're just thinking, I think I'm gonna bail. You see, starting the process of becoming financially healthy is exciting. You meet with somebody that really knows their stuff. You put together a plan. There's a budget. You start tracking it. And at first couple months, it's actually exciting and it's fun. And then it's not. It becomes hard. And now you're in a place where you're just thinking about, forget it. I don't think that we can do this. And maybe for you, it's not the task of becoming financially healthy. Maybe it's becoming emotionally healthy or physically healthy or spiritually healthy. And you're just, I think it's too hard. Or maybe it was a couple months ago, somebody stood on this stage or one similar and described an opportunity to serve with kids here in our church. And it sounded cool, and you started out as a third grade small group leader. And at first, the energy of those kids was so exciting. And a couple months from that point, you now realize those kids are actually wild animals. And it's difficult, and it's hard, and you're tired, and you're thinking, I'm not sure this is having any impact. I'm not sure it's really worth it. But those kids need a caring adult in their life. But you're thinking about walking away. But what if God is calling you, is asking you to finish faithfully? A wedding day, now that is like the epitome of an exciting start. But you're far from that day. You're far from those feelings, and you're far from each other. And you're just thinking about walking away. done. What if God is calling you to finish faithfully that responsibility, that relationship, that promise? When she was born, is there any more exciting day than the start of someone's life, a birth? But now she's 17, and the last 6 months have been a word that starts with H that you're not supposed to say in church. It has been so hard when she doesn't come home from school, when she screams at you, when you don't know where she is, when she takes your money, and you just want to throw your hands up in the air and say, I'm done. I don't have any more. And you're just thinking about quitting, at least on a heart level. But what if God is asking you to finish faithfully this role, this gift of parenthood? And right about now, you're probably thinking, thanks for the challenge, thanks for the reminder. I agree, but how? How do you finish faithfully when it is so hard, so challenging, so confusing? How? And the truth is, I'm not sure I have all the answers to that question. But there is something in Ecclesiastes 7 that I think brings us hope. And so here it is. He says, do not say, why were the old days better than these? For it is not wise to ask such questions. Why were the old days better than these? He's talking about the good old days. He's talking about nostalgia. And it sounds a little bit like your grandpa, like your father-in-law, right? Like back in the 50s, everything was golden. You know, the Reagan administration, now that was the pinnacle of America. Or I've been guilty of this one. You know, back before social media, life was so much better. Who's fallen into that, right? It's called the good old days. It's called nostalgia. It's looking back. And we do this. We say, you know what? Life was so much easier, simpler, better before. You fill in the blank. Life was so much easier before I got married. And life was so much better before we had these kids. Before I took on this responsibility, before I made this promise, before I started trying to follow Jesus, life was so much easier. It's called nostalgia, looking back on the good old days. And I'm telling you, it is an enemy. It is an enemy to finishing faithfully. Because we look at our present circumstances and we just say, there's no hope here. There's just no way. And that looks so much better. Or over there looks so much easier. And you just want to escape. You just want to get out. And we give ourselves permission to walk away, to quit, to bail on the responsibilities and roles and relationships that God has asked us to finish faithfully. You see, this thought creeps into our heads where we go, you know what, God's not here. And he's not working because there is no hope here. Subconsciously, it just gets into our head. I don't think, what I need to do is go back to something else or go over there to something else. But I need you to hear something, and I need you to hear it very clearly. That God is here, and he is present in your present circumstances. He is at work, and he is active right here. In the mess, in the struggle where you're trying to become financially healthy again, or emotionally healthy, or spiritual, he's here, he's present, he's active, he's at work. And if that's true, then there is hope. It's not finished. And I need you to hear that God is present in your marriage, that he's at work in your heart, in the heart of your spouse. And if he is present and if he is at work, then there is hope for your marriage. And I need you to hear very clearly that God is present and he is at work in the heart of your kid. And he cares about that kid more than you can imagine. And the story is not finished. It's not done. And if he is present, and if he is at work, then there is hope. And you and I, we can finish faithfully. Because you know what? We're not alone. Finishing faithfully is not dependent on your own strength and your own supply of endurance and perseverance. No, there is one who created the world, who sustains it all, who is right there with you. And when you lean on his supply of strength and perseverance and endurance, then there is hope to finish faithfully. And you know what? Finishing faithfully matters. It matters for our reputation, for our good name, but more than that, because our name, my name, and your name as followers of Jesus is connected to somebody else's name. It's connected to the name of our Savior. We represent him. You see, fast forward history, a couple hundred years from the writing of Ecclesiastes, a guy by the name of the Apostle Paul. He's a leader in the early church, and he's traveling around the world starting Jesus communities. And he writes letters to those Jesus communities, and many of these letters are what make up the New Testament, the second half of our Bible. And in one of these letters to a church in Corinth, a group of Jesus followers in Corinth, which is modern-day Greece, he says, "We are therefore Christ's ambassadors." You know what an ambassador is, right? Representing Jesus here. It's like you and I, we represent Jesus in our families and in our workplaces and in our schools and on our teams. It's as though God were making his appeal through us. As if God himself were telling the world through us, I love you and I want you back. And I gave my life for you. It's now through us. We represent him. Our name, our reputation, our good name is connected to his name. And so finishing matters. To another church over here in a city called Colossae in modern day Turkey, he says, whatever you do, whether it's in word or deed, I mean everything, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus. Because it's about his name. Our name is connected to his name. And so how we live matters. It's as if God himself were making his appeal to the people in your family and in your workplace and at your school through our lives. And so this week, may you choose to live backward, to make what's going to matter then matter now. Why? Because our name is connected to his name. And when we live the right way with the right priorities, people are gonna go, maybe there's something to this Jesus thing after all. And this week, may you choose to listen wisely. And when your boss, who's not a believer, gives you feedback and you listen wisely, he might say, isn't she a Jesus follower? And may you choose to pursue finishing faithfully this week, even though it's difficult, even though it's hard, because he is present in your circumstances and there is hope because he is active. And as you endure and as you persevere, may the people in your life see Jesus in you, and may God make his appeal through your faithfulness. This is what God wants to do in our lives. I'd love to pray for you as we wrap up our time. God, thank you for this opportunity just to spend some time in your scriptures, God. Your words are amazing. They're so full of life and challenge. God, we're just grateful for this gift. And God, I think specifically right now of people in tough situation who desperately want to finish faithfully, but just don't know how, don't feel like they have the strength. God, may you make your presence known. May you bring hope. May you remind us that if you are with us, we have access to your perseverance and your strength. God, may you help us to endure. And as we do, may you reveal yourself to the people around us. And may they discover your goodness and your love and your grace through our lives. God, we love you. We appreciate you so much. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks so much for being here this week. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.